Now, before we get to the questions, when I was reading the editorial, I saw you make a face when I said Reagan forgot things.
No, I mean, I thought it was funny that she thought it was funny.
Because
that's supposed to be...
Let's remember, Reagan did forget things.
Towards the end of the life,
the name of his Secretary of State and well,
Hunt's secretary, but yeah,
basic shit.
But you know, I think we also know that he also was a smarter guy than a lot of people gave him credit for.
That doesn't say much.
Bill, what you're forgetting though is SC wasn't born then, so there's a whole different question of she wanted to know who was Reagan.
Right. It's amnesia, yeah.
No, trust me, when you have a book like this that sells well to the Republican right wing, they know who Reagan is.
I do.
And I have a suspicion you're setting up your next book, Finding My Religion.
Oh, wow. That is really paranoid sounding.
Well, from an atheist who defends religious people, it's not that great.
I mean, that's a conspiracy theory. No plans to find God in the immediate future, yeah.
But still defending the people who believe in him.
Yes, I think it's nice. Why are you so mad at God?
I'm not mad at God. I'm quizzical at contradictions. Okay. Robert asks, has Ms. Cupp faced any criticism from the right over her atheist beliefs, or lack thereof?
Yes.
Okay. Moving on.
Elaborate.
Donald asked, why is it that the British election process doesn't seem to be the long, drawn-out horse race that characterizes American elections?
Because you can lose and still get a government. That's simple.
And also because they can...
There is no majority. They still form a government. And by the way, the Queen is forever, so she appointed who was going to form the government.
That's a
that Queen is forever.
Yeah, okay.
That Queen ain't never going away.
No, I didn't.
Poor Charles, he's 110 and his mother won't die.
Yeah, I'm not embracing the system, but that is the system.
No, but you know what's interesting about that? They just did form a coalition government. They haven't done that in a long time, but it would be as if, you know, Obama and Bush were working together. But the difference in that country is that they're not that different. Like, they all believe in evolution over there. See, we have a religious right, so we can't really work together. These guys are starting from a position of reality, whereas we have one party that is in touch with reality, and then you have people
it's more than that.
like people who deny global warming.
We tend to vilify the other side, whichever side it is.
They richly deserve it.
Although, Bill, do understand
it's hard to create a coalition with people
that the Queen's ability to govern as a sovereign comes from God. That is the basis under which the nobles have it. So, you know, unfortunately...
But she's not the ruler anymore.
Well, she's the head of state.
Well, that's a ceremonial position.
She named who was going to form the government.
Yeah, no, she did.
Yes, she did.
Absolutely.
Yes, she did.
Do you seriously think the Queen of England is really the kingmaker of
Okay, somebody told her who was going to be named, but it was her choice.
She's on a stamp, Congressman. Let's not...
She's on the money.
She's on the money, exactly.
Why do you think they couldn't go to the euro?
But she doesn't
They couldn't go to the euro because she's still there saying, I'm on the money, damn it.
No, but the real issue, come back to my friend here, because let's talk about the United States and coalitions here.
Important point, because the problem we got here is our two parties are basically controlled by the extremes. You got the religious right, and the folks on the left, whether they're public sector unions or whatever.
That's a false dichotomy.
Well, no.
Your book is crazy, too.
Well, let's talk about it.
Your book is wrong, too. Because you say there are wingnuts equally on left and right.
I do. Look,
your own book is full of wingnuts on the right and hardly any on the left. So it's not an equal problem.
Because I'm focusing on what's going on right now. Look,
there is no left equivalent of Glenn Beck or Sarah Palin.
Sure there is.
Yes, of course there is. Keith Olbermann is crazy.
He is not.
He is crazy.
He's obnoxious. That's different.
Hold on.
I think he's lost his mind.
He's not crazy.
I think he's
a lot less people watching him.
He's not.
The problem right now is that everybody does believe in their own corner that, you know, their party has a monopoly on virtue and the other party is all vice. It's ridiculous. Look, I believe that the far left and the far right can be equally insane. I also believe
they can be, but they're not.
And I also believe that in the first year of Obama, the far right has been far crazier.
You know,
and that's what my book's about.
This is fake fairness. Fake fairness is a big problem in journalism.
But you admit that the left does have interest groups that undermine rational policy.
You can't.
You do admit that.
He's a Democrat.
That the left does have interest groups that undermine rational policy, that on our side of the political aisle.
Much less.
I'm not saying more or less. I'm saying we have people that undermine progress.
But it's
truthers.
But it's important to identify how much of something.
And I do that in the book, which is why it mostly focuses on the right, because it's about the first year of Obama. But the whole point is, the point of the book is that we need to stand up to extremes on both sides if we're going to stop this cycle of incitement before it gets uglier. If you only focus on one, you feed the problem. That's what I believe.
Except it's not true. It's not real, and it's not honest to pretend.
I think it's totally honest. I think what problem is, there's a fundamental dishonesty.
Tell me what on the left is the equivalent of militias, teabaggers, birthers, truthers. Tell me where on the left.
Well, remember,
truthers are on the left.
You gave a great example.
This?
Truthers are on the left.
The truthers began on the left,
Truthers
and now
neither.
they've migrated over. Well, that's what I call the fright wing of American politics, where it kind of blurs over. Same with the birthers. But look, you know, you see with the historic perspective, we're very used to radical anti-government groups now on the right, the militias, the 90s, and the resurgent now, which I call the Hatriots in my book. But people forget that in the late 1960s, early 1970s, the radical, violent anti-government groups were from the left mostly.
The 60s.
Of course, the Weather Underground. But
Which
you
is
don't
why
have to go back that far.
Okay, in the 1790s there was a problem too. I'm dealing with since she was alive. How
You
about
don't
that?
even have to go back that far. Look at PETA. Look at the arsonist. Look at the
PETA, as if
environmental freak.
PETA is as influential as the teabag.
How about if we simply look at Code Pink, throw in red painted money, fake money, onto members of Congress.
But they don't have political influence.
Thank you. They don't.
Are they crazy? Are they over the top? Did they literally assault people over a war? And in many cases, assault people like John Conyers who were against
Let me give you a better. Let me give you a real example.
Aren't you glad you came for this?
Yes.
Let me give you a real example of your party's doing. We know right now that a Republican who has a sensible idea, we polled. We have a coalition of Republican and Democratic mayors that polled the country on gun laws that we thought were stupid and causing very bad levels of guns coming into cities all up and down the East Coast. And so one simple rule, which is stopping occasional sellers from being able to sell gun shows, to be able to sell guns to anybody they want to without doing a background check. They could be criminals, they could be terrorists, they could be wife beaters.
They could be me. You're not taking away my gun, I can tell you that.
And I don't want to. This has nothing to do about...
Because God's not going to protect her.
But we polled gun owners, and over 85% of gun owners said they agree with that. But one Republican congressman steps out of lockstep with the NRA, there's a huge punishment that's a result of it. And we've gotten to a point in our culture now that if you hug the president, if you give him a brother bump or something like that, then you're in danger of getting reelected in your primary. So the fact that we can't have rational discourse...
I have a much more understanding base in my primary. I'll get reelected, and I did hug him.
Well, but
I'm okay.
Okay, but you understand
But it
what I'm
wasn't a
talking
brother
about.
bump.
It wasn't. No, it was. But you know,
I think it's the brother bump that gets you.
What Corey's talking about is
What is that? Wait, what is a brother bump?
You want me to stand up and demonstrate that right now?
I'm not claiming.
Yeah, let's see it. Let's see the brother bump. All right, go ahead.
Go ahead.
All right. Oh, I just...
It's nothing so scary.
All right.
It's all right.
I did that with Ed Towns yesterday on C-SPAN.
Yeah.
But Corey has a point when he talks about guns, and we could talk about that. But let's talk about something else. You wrote about wingnuts.
Yeah.
Okay. How about finding a coalition of Republicans and/or Democrats together that are purely interested in getting our country fiscally back on a reasonable plane?
Sign me up.
Tell me that isn't the ultimate shortage. It's not how many nuts you have on two extremes. It's how few you have in the middle.
Obama suggested a commission for that, and the Republicans voted against it.
That's exactly right.
They wouldn't even allow the commission.
Exactly. He's talking about the deficit reduction panel, which the Republicans
The deficit reduction
Absolutely
panel.
Right.
Right.
Well, actually, he did by executive order a 10-to-8 commission that 10 Democrats, 8 Republicans that is going to propose a VAT tax. They went in already knowing what they were going to do.
Republicans who supported it actually voted against it after Obama came out
How
for
cynical
it.
is that? Look, they're campaigning on fiscal responsibility, which is exactly right, but when it was going to be a binding panel with an up or down vote, they abandoned it. This is the problem in our politics. Things are so fundamentally, we're having fundamentally dishonest debates in our politics right now because everything is filtered through a prism of partisanship. And so it's bullshit.
John, the VAT tax is supported by a huge amount of Republicans in lieu of an income tax, not in addition.
That tax is a terrible idea on like 8 different levels.
But the fact is, and maybe that's what Republicans are wrong, but now the Democrats are supporting it. They're supporting it in addition to an income tax, which was the 9th level. It's all 8 plus another.
All right, I got to go home and pray. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you, audience.